Ready to see who you came here for? What an honor and a privilege it is to introduce your next president of the United States, Mr. Evelyn Yang.
Welcome the person who let me run for president, my wife Evelyn Yang. Whenever anyone thanks me for running for president, which does happen, I say thank my wife.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's give it up for Ronnie Chang, MC Jin. And someone who might not have gotten credit, Mr. Brian Yang. Where's Brian Yang? Brian Yang is so OG Yang Gang that he put up Yang 2020 on his Facebook page, and I was so early that people were like, Brian, you're running for president? And he had to be like, no, my friend Andrew. That's how far back we go. We back 20 years. Who knew that Asian parties was how you prepare to run for president? We had no idea. We were just kicking back. How many of you all partied with me when we were young? There's a few people. I just got back from a magical land called Iowa. I gotta say, the crowds are just getting bigger and bigger all the time. Iowa, I tell them that this is where history is gonna be made, and I gotta say, the media is missing what's happening on the ground in Iowa. Because I've been going there once a month for the last 2 years. This is my 23rd trip. And now when you go, you see the crowds are spilling out into the street. Folks are canvassing their neighbors, and their neighbors now have seen a bunch of ads about me and the campaign, and so all of a sudden the conversations are taking a ton of new momentum. And that's only possible because of the generosity and support of people like you here tonight, so thank you all so much for believing me in the campaign. I get the sense that a lot of you are pretty hardcore Yang Gang. So I'm going to try and go deeper into the campaign. I'm not going to give you the customary stump. You can go to a site called YouTube and probably find like videos. And so if you're just here and Yang curious, just go to YouTube after, don't worry about it. But for the folks who are here and hardcore, you're like me, you're a numbers person. I want to go through some of the numbers that are getting us so excited here in the field. Thanks to people like you, we raised $10 million last quarter. In increments of only $30 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But there are a lot of them. It's a very cheap gang to join, and you all are way above average members of the Yang Gang. You're like, I didn't donate $30 to be in this place. You all are like senior members of the gang. One of the fun things about being on the debate stage is you actually hang out with some of the other candidates. And this past time I saw Bernie this week in Atlanta, and I thanked him because Bernie said he liked me to a journalist. And then when he said he liked me, I was like, Bernie said he likes me? I've been around him like a dozen times and I had no idea he liked me. He doesn't really give you that, That's true, he's just like his SNL characters. So I saw him, and then during one of the commercial breaks, I was like, hey, Bernie, thank you for saying nice things about me, like to that journalist. And then he did something he'd never done before. He put his arm around me. I was like, of course I like you, Andrew. Bringing a lot of good ideas to the table. I gotta say, I felt like a proud nephew. I was like Uncle Bernie. He put his arm around me. I was a Bernie guy last time. I don't know how many of you guys. But then I voted for Hillary. I'm not like. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm pro-civilization. Let's put that way. So after I got off the debate stage in Atlanta, I met with Martin Luther King's son, Martin Luther King III. And imagine sitting there and talking to someone, you're talking about Martin Luther King, and then he uses this sentence, "Dad said this." And then you're just like, Martin Luther King's your dad? And of course your dad, because that's why I'm meeting with you, but then you're still just like, psh, like, freaking dad? Like, you actually had conversations with him about universal basic income? Seriously. So we're in Atlanta, met with Martin Luther King III, which was an inspirational experience. Then we had events in Atlanta. Then we went to South Carolina, where the crowd's also bigger than ever. We just put up 4% in South Carolina without any advertising. And so the numbers that get us so excited is that our polling has gone up essentially 1% a month for the last number of months. We started at 0. I remember the 0 days quite well. The 0 days were the days when Evelyn's like, I'm not campaigning with you. And then it went to 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then now it's around 4. And all of this has been without advertising, Yang. A lot of the movement you see in the polls is because people have been spending millions of dollars on advertising in the early states. We just started advertising thanks to supporters like you about 2 weeks ago. And there is a 3 to 6 week lag time between when you start advertising and when you see a bump in the polls. So I can say to you with absolute certainty that you're going to see an uptick in our polls in the next 1 to 3 weeks. And if you dig deeper into the numbers, everything we've seen has us really excited about what's to come. Because people who've been through this a number of times say that this is the most fluid, dynamic field in history, where people say they support one of the four frontrunners, but then they say they could change their mind at any time. If you have 4 frontrunners, it turns out you have no frontrunners.
Yes.
And if you look at all of the candidates, you know who has the highest conviction numbers of any candidate? You're looking at a New York City. The people that come in, this 3 or 4% in the early states that say they're for Andrew Yang, they're the most likely to say, I would not be happy with any other candidate, and I'm sure that this is what I got. So we have a very, very firm, passionate foundation in the early states, and then the other candidate support is very, very soft. It's one reason why you have someone like Mike Bloomberg being like, if I spent like $500 million or so, I think I might be able to. Because he's seeing the same numbers I'm seeing and other campaigns are seeing. The thing is totally up in the air. So we have so many advantages going in, and we're just hitting our stride at the right time. I just met with the entire Iowa team, and they are pumped about what they're seeing. How their conversations, instead of being like, hey, Andrew Yang, and people are like, who? Now it's like Andrew Yang, it's like, oh, I saw these commercials about him, tell me more.
Yes.
And then the adoption just keeps on going up and up. So we're going to continue to grow and peak at the exact right time when voting starts on February 3rd. Because what's the #1 criteria for Democratic primary voters for the nominee? Beat Donald Trump, that's right. And I am one of only 2 candidates in the entire field that a poll said 10% or more of Donald Trump voters said they would support in the general election.
Yeah.
And it has something to do with Ronnie Chang just said, and he's obviously joking about most of that stuff. But a friend of mine's mom who watched Fox News said, of the Democratic field, the only one I would support is Andrew Yang. Because he does not seem to be judging me at all. And it's true. I just want to help her. I want to improve the lot of all Americans. And the greatest power we have is that people sense that that motivation is pure. I have no agenda except trying to improve the human condition and the day-to-day lives of the folks that have gotten left behind in the 21st century economy, which unfortunately is more and more of us. Now we're here in Manhattan. A lot of people here are really highly educated, very successful. You obviously have a little bit of disposable cash, so you can come out on a Sunday night and throw down on this awesome event. And so we have climbed up through the meritocracy, through the hierarchy in our own ways, you know? But the fact is, in this era, we're all going to be running a race that's going to be harder and harder for everyone. Where artificial intelligence is not just going to displace the retail workers, the cashiers, the McDonald's clerks, the call center workers, the warehouse shelvers, it's also going to start hitting radiologists, accountants, pharmacists. I was an unhappy lawyer for 5 months, which is long enough to know that you can automate away a lot of that job. The meritocracy is deluding us into thinking that people's success or failure depends upon our character or work ethic. But what I say to people is, like, when the robot trucks come, it doesn't matter if the trucker was the hardworking, conscientious trucker or the not so hardworking trucker, the robot's better than both of them. Same is true with the AI and the radiologist, where the artificial intelligence can see shades of gray on a film that no human eye can, and it can reference millions of data points instead of thousands. It's not that the radiologist just got lazy, it's just that technology is getting smarter and stronger all of the time. So we have to evolve from thinking of everything as this cutthroat competition and start to humanize our economy. And I learned this when Evelyn and I had our first son, Christopher. Where Christopher, when he was born, I was a bit cocky. How many of y'all are parents like us? What do you do when leaving your kids at home? No, I'm kidding. Our kids don't even realize Daddy's running for president. So I was cocky when our first son was born. I was like, you know, everyone's had kids. Like, how hard could this be? And then if you have your hand up, you realize, like, oh my gosh. Like, now I like it having a kid to, like, just having a grenade in the house. And I was just gonna jump on the grenade, like, repeatedly. Everybody know what I'm talking about. And Evelyn and I were talking about what that means to parents around the country who have these struggles, but often they're doing it alone, or they're balancing 2 jobs, or you know, a kid has special needs and they don't have the proper resources in the community. We realize that this economy is turning on more and more of us in different ways. To me, this is the clear reason why Donald Trump is our president, that we have this economy that's been pushing more and more people to the side. And Democrats seem to have taken the wrong lesson from Trump's victory and have been focusing just on Donald Trump. What I'm saying to folks around the country is that Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems. He's a symptom, and we have to cure the disease.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. Yeah. You can just consider me America's Asian doctor. And my prescription is money. So Donald Trump said he was going to make America great, and then what did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. Remember that? I mean, I voted for her, but that was not the right response. We have to acknowledge the depth and severity and reality of the problems in America, but then we need real solutions that will actually help move the country forward. Donald Trump's solutions were the opposite of what we need. He said we need to build a wall, turn the clock back, and bring the old jobs back. And we know here in New York, in this room tonight, that we need to do the opposite. We need to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We have to let America know it's not immigrants that are causing these problems, am I right? It's not immigrants. If you go to these factories in Michigan and Ohio, it's not wall-to-wall immigrants, it's wall-to-wall robot arms and machines. Same thing to the Amazon fulfillment centers, wall-to-wall robots and machines. So we have to let America know that it's not immigrants. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. And I have to say this campaign is hitting home because Americans have been waiting for this message. Americans have been waiting for a diagnosis of the real problems and the solutions that they can understand. That's why we're growing all the time. I decided to run for president a couple of years ago, and I have to say at that time, this was a very unlikely run. There are people here in the room tonight that were among the first people to support my campaign, and I love you for it. People like Brian Yang, people like David Day, Matthew Messina. The reactions I got, I'm honest, like the reactions I got was like, hey, I'm running for president. And the reactions I got ran from president of what? To literal tears of joy, which like a friend of mine who's here tonight actually like cried when I told him and then said he'd do anything he could to help me. So I've seen the growth from that time when it was the most unlikely thing in the world to now. And I had a couple of visions for this campaign. One was that I was going to make the debate stage. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great for the Asian American community to have an Asian American on that stage? Because I remember growing up in this country and thinking about what we saw of ourselves. And I imagine being a younger version of myself and turning on the TV and seeing an Asian man standing on that stage and saying, this is totally normal. Asians run for president.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say we've hit that mark 5 times. We're going for number 6. Like the good child of immigrants that I am, never content. Just get greedier and greedier. So we made the debate stage out, but the goal, New York City, is not to last. The goal is to win this whole thing. And I see it clear as day. I see the path ahead of us in the numbers and in the eyes of the people in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada and South Carolina. We can win.
That's right.
Yes.
So the vision I had being the debate stage was one. There have been many, many things that I visualized through this campaign that we've knocked out each and every time, and then the vision just gets bigger and bigger. But one thing I'm going to share with you all is a story that I tell sometimes where when I was 14 or so, my dad was a physicist for IBM, so he invented stuff. And when I was about 13 or 14, I figured out what a patent was, and I figured out that my dad was generating patents. And so then I said, hey Dad, how much money do you get when you generate a patent? And I was like ready for some big number, right? It seemed really important. And he was like, $200, $250. And then I was like, that doesn't seem like a whole lot. And then he said, I also get paid a salary so I can house, feed, and clothe you and your brother. And I was like, oh, I see. Like, I understand how it goes. But there was one time when he came back home and he was really angry. I was 14 years old or so. And he was mad, and I was like, wow, Dad seems mad. Why are you mad? And he said something to me I'll never forget. He said, at IBM, when you can't invent anything anymore, they make you a manager. And so he said there were a bunch of Asians in the lab and then a bunch of white managers managing them. And I heard this and I was 14 years old, and I was like, wow. And I don't know if he was right, I was 14. But I remember internalizing this sense then that Asians are allowed to become this successful in this country, but we're not allowed to become this successful. And one of the goals I had for this campaign was to show our children that there is no limit to what we can accomplish in this country, that we are just as good and just as American as anyone else. And I'm happy to say it's happening. People are waking up. That we are not just as American as everyone else. We are just as patriotic. We love our families just as much, and we have just as clear a vision and a right to contribute to the future of this country as anyone else. Now I'm going to speak to the Asian Americans. Many of you are Asian. I can't really precisely see you say that. But as a numbers guy, I also want to be frank about our community. We are a political afterthought in this country. We're a political afterthought for a number of fairly substantive reasons. Number one, we vote less than other groups. Number two, we donate money less than other groups. Present company accepted, so thank you. But raise your hand if this is the first political contribution or political campaign you've ever made. No, so, it's like, right. We run for office less than other groups. we tend to live in states that are either very blue or very red. So we're not like swing votes. If we all lived in New Hampshire, we would all of a sudden become very, very important. So what I'm asking you all to do tonight is to move to New Hampshire. In all seriousness, if you do want to come campus in New Hampshire anytime in the next 2 months, it would be grand. You just go up there over the weekend. It's actually quite fun. It's delightful. You've got like the fall foliage, a little bit less so now. But you go up there, knock on some doors, talk to some people. They're generally really excited to hear from you because people respond to other people respond to passion. Someone just said it's awesome. Are you the canvas?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. So there are legitimate reasons why we're something of a political afterthought. And there was a very high-level Democratic official who said to a friend of mine that Asian Americans are regarded as a low-level ATM. Wow. Oh, I know. Oh, it's true. So there are a number of things we can do about this, New York City. Number one, we can become a high-level ATM. But number two, we can start investing our energies and our support in the candidates that we believe in. We can let people know that we are not going to be content to just watch the politics of America take shape without us at the table. And we're going to fight for a place at that table. What do you think?
That's right.
Anytime I have a tech malfunction, I'm like, it's the Russians. They're always trying to keep me down. Trying to suppress the message. What is with MSNBC? I've been joking. It's like, did I like run over their dog and like I didn't know it? And it's like they're like coming with a picture of like Rover and being like, Andrew, this is why. It's seriously like a major mystery to me. What the heck is going on? Like I've just been like, John Yang, okay, honest mistake. You know, graphic 1, graphic 2. Yeah, maybe you guys are just really bad at your jobs. That's cool. And then like, eventually have to be like, so there's something afoot. You know? And Evelyn was in the room in Atlanta and she saw me like go through the motions where I was like, huh, not calling on me much. Let me raise my hand. All right, that didn't work. Let me do the raise both hands. I was like standing there like that. You know, it's like, let me just start talking to the microphone. Maybe that'll do something. Like the progression, it was wild. Like, you can almost see my wheels turning. And Evelyn was in the room, so she actually saw the wheels turning. So there's a bit of an uphill climb. You know, there's some like headwinds against us, but this group, I talk about the American people are a sleeping giant and the Asian Americans are a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
And my goal is for this campaign to be the smelling salts, New York City. We're gonna wake our people up. And so we have a lot to ask of you here tonight. You are awesome for being here, for supporting the campaign, for taking some of your hard-earned money, but we need you to push because this is crunch time for the campaign. We're in the midst of Q4, and Q4, we're gonna have to deliver a really big number. So what we need you to do is dig deep, donate what you can, but also bug your friends who weren't here tonight and say, hey, I went to this Andrew Yang event. I think that you should check him out, and then you know which of your friends can afford it. You know. And you know which of your friends you've given money to their stuff, no questions asked, you know what I mean? You know which friends owe you a solid. You know? We need you to reach out to them and ask them to give. Need you to take your favorite article or interview or media appearance and send it to folks. The top end need you to take a weekend trip to New Hampshire like he did. Canvas.
I'll drive.
He'll drive. Now, after you're done canvassing, you can visit friends and family in Boston. It's like a delightful weekend. And then post pictures of yourself canvassing, and then your friends will be like, wow, like they did that? Like that's really something I need to check out. Because people respond to commitment, drive, and passion, but this is our chance, New York City. This is our chance to fight for our future. We'll actually be proud to leave for our kids. We have come this far, but this is the last 2.5 months before the voting starts, and we need your help. Are you with us, New York City? I know you are. You are my people, and I love you for right, let's let the rest of the country know. It's not left, it's not right, it's forward. That's where we will take this country in 2020. Thank you, New York City. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Check. What's up, guys? I'm Zach. Hi, everybody.
Put the money in our hands. 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 Can we afford it? Yes. Will it cause inflation? No. Is it awesome? Yes. Is anyone trying to make it happen? Yeah, that guy.